opposite.
Okay. So,
I'm sorry, what page you said?
page Lamed Hey. So, we can. Salam shows, as they say in French. We were discussing the lesson we're supposed to learn from the fact that Yisrael arrived specifically after hearing about the war with Amalek. So we learned one idea already, which is that the full function of Yisrael was to transform the darkness to light. Yisrael knew every idol worship in the world, and his coming to Jewish people to acknowledge the truth of Torah served to transform darkness to light and prepare for the giving of the Torah. The giving of the Torah is about the highest revelation of Hashem reaching the lowest place. So one step of that was accomplished by the splitting of the Red Sea, because the splitting of the Red Sea means that all that was hidden was revealed. It was only revealed up to a point in Kedusha. It was revealed from the highest level of Kedusha to the lowest level of Kedusha, lowest level of holiness. But then after that, there's still Kipper. There's still the unholy. So that's why Amalek attacked us. So Yisrael, seeing that Amalek is still attacking us, he realized that the job isn't done yet. And therefore he has something to do. He has to come and contribute who he can to transform the darkness to light. That's why he came. So the war with Amalek inspired Yisrael to come. So that's the first lesson we learn in our own lives. In order to absorb Torah, to really get the Torah, you have to fight with Amalek. What does that mean? You have to also elevate the parts of your life which are very distant from holiness. You have to also take the parts of your life, your eating, your drinking, and the most physical things, and make them, and also connect them to Hashem. Well, that's the only way to really absorb Torah. It's by the lowest things in your life. Like the Rebbe Rasha was once walking with the previous Rebbe, I think it was, and he saw some boys walking together, and he's observing them. And he remarked something to the effect, that's imprinted on Perlov's Sefer. He said, he's watching them because although it's like a small thing, just walking in the street, he said, in small things, you can see big things. In small things, you can see big things. And the way people do very small, simple things, you could tell, they say a story about this tzaddik, I don't remember his name, who he was a student of a colleague of his became the successor of another tzaddik. And one of his students was so impressed by when he visited Tzaddik Beis, I wish I knew the names and one of the story. And he came back to the tzaddik. Come inside. The water's fine. He comes inside. He comes to see his tzaddik, and his tzaddik asks him, "Tell me about the other tzaddik. Tell me what's good about it." So apparently the student was a very, very astute. He said, "This tzaddik, when he has soup, he lifts a spoon to his mouth. He doesn't lower his mouth. Doesn't lower his head. He just puts it into his mouth without lowering his head." I could do the same thing. And then he took the spoon, lifted it, and he put his mouth, and he had to lower his head. It seems like a very small little thing, but that shows like your connection to the physical, what it means to you. It's a subconscious reaction, but that meant something on how much they value the physical on their levels. Anyways, the point is, in order to absorb the Torah, you have to fight with Amalek. You have to also engage the mundane. And just like to first split the Red Sea before you fight with Amalek, so to every day we learned splitting the Red Sea every day means to daven, to learn, and to reveal your neshama in yourself. Then you reveal your neshama, then you're able to go out into the world and to try to elevate. It's true on a daily level that the study of Torah happens before you go out to the world, but in to absorb the Torah, to make Torah part of you, it involves fighting with Amalek. It involves elevating the most distant things. Now that was going to give us another lesson that Yonatan Malger will enjoy much more from the story of Amalek's war with us and what this has to do with Yisrael. His base. Another lesson we learn from the fact that Yisrael specifically came to Jewish people. When he heard about the war with Amalek, what does this mean? When a Jew feels within himself the war with Amalek, what does it mean you feel a war with Amalek? You feel a frigidity towards holy things. What do? You have to know. You have to know the way to take care of this is that the Yisrael within yourself has to go to the desert to get the Torah. Your Yisrei has to go to the desert to get the Torah. The Zohar says on the pasuk, "This is the Torah of man." The Zohar says, "Whatever you see in the Torah isn't within yourself. Yisrei is within you. Sarah is within you. Rivka is within you. So if you see in yourself, there's a war with Amalek. You see yourself, they're getting called towards kedusha. What are you supposed to do? You have to take your Yisrei and go to the desert. What does that mean? You might think, I'm being subjected to this frigidity towards holiness. I'm going to learn a chapter of Tanya. I'm going to learn a mimer. I'm going to learn about the greatness of Hashem and warm myself up a little bit. La'at, and little by little, I'll learn another discourse, another chapter of Tanya. And the end is, I'll get rid of this guy by every day, another chapter. Sounds good, no? Doesn't make sense? Such a plan. Seems like a good plan. So therefore, the Torah tells us instruction that the way to get rid of the clip of Amalek is not by going level to level, by going step by step. It's not by doing what the Torah says regarding other spiritual challenges. The Torah says, little by little, I will divorce it from myself.
Does that have anything to do with the fact that we say by Amalek, the fact that first you settle down, then you go to war? Usually you're in war, you settle down to finish with this stuff.
It certainly does.
It specifically says, when everything is calm and I took care of everything,
I'll
get up and take care of Amalek.
It's certainly not what the Rebbe is saying over here. I know what there must be some instruction for that pasuk as well. I don't know what it is, but certainly not what the Rebbe is saying over here. The Rebbe is saying here the opposite. You might think this is a good plan, little by little. This verse, little by little, is brought in Tanya in the end of chapter 27. The Alter Rebbe speaks there about how a person might say to themselves, why do you have to fight this war with my Yetzer Hara every day? What is this about? The Alter Rebbe says these unbelievable words that are only in Judaism. Alter Rebbe says, Ule lakach, that's your perfection. Your perfection is not to win, your perfection is to fight. But then the Alter Rebbe adds at the end of the chapter, he says that when you have a skafia, when you overcome your animal soul and do what Hashem wants you to do. So he says, Hashem gives you siyua rava atzum, gives you tremendous assistance to serve him.
It says maybe there?
Maybe it might be a different chapter. Maybe a different chapter. I think it's in that chapter.
Does it say maybe?
Yes, that definitely says maybe. Maybe that's why. Because there are some souls which are meant to be tzaddik and they win.
It says Ulay, not
The Alter Rebbe says that when you try to be holy, Hashem helps you become holy. As in a pasuk, you should be holy and you will be holy. So Alter Rebbe says, make yourself pretend that you're holy, meaning abstain from things you're not supposed to do. And although you don't want to abstain, but you should do anyways. And when you do that, Alter Rebbe says, little by little, Hashem will take away this from your heart. Oh, time parents. Little by little, Hashem will take away this negativity from your heart. So, in other words, you're dealing with a very hard Yetzer Hara, and you're hard knuckling it. The Alter Rebbe says, little by little, get easier. There, the Alter Rebbe is talking about different kinds of klippa. In Tanya, it says the animal soul has different components. There's fire, water, wind, and earth. So, yeah, let's say your Yetzer Hara is very fiery. You have a lot of anger. You have a lot of arrogance. Let's say Yetzer Hara is watery, a lot of passion. Let's say it's earthy. It's very. So those are different kinds of things you need to do to overcome your animal so little by little and to change it. Alter Rebbe says it'll get easier. It's not going to turn into a tzaddik, but it'll get easier. That's what this is not about the Hashem. But here there's different point there. What about if you're dealing with not now you're dealing with the animal soul. You're dealing with the clip of Amalek. You're dealing with this frigidity to kedusha. So the Rebbe says the advice to get rid of this frigidity is not by going slowly, adding a chapter of Tanya every day. Rather, it's not by going step by step. You have to leave all things aside. all physical things and all spiritual things. Put it all aside. Hold on. And to throw yourself completely, the whole force into holiness, go to the mountain of Hashem. To completely throw yourself into the mountain, into Kedusha, in order to get rid of Amalek. You cannot go step by step to get rid of this guy.
The snake and the scorpion when you dive it in the bar.
Yes.
It's exactly that, no?
Yeah. But that what you're referring to is the Rebbe writes in Sichav, Parshas Ekev, Parshas, I remember, that brings from Baal Shem Tov, that it says if there's a snake on your foot when you're davening, don't stop. If there's a scorpion on your foot, you should stop. So the Baal Shem Tov explains that the snake's venom is hot, a scorpion's venom is cold. So Baal Shem Tov says, you see in yourself you're attached to clip in the wrong way. You see yourself that you have the wrong kind of things you're attracted to. Your davening that could still be good. It doesn't mean that your davening is bad. But if you have frigidity to kedusha, you have coldness, so then you have to stop your davening. You have to restart the whole thing again. So I think it's very relevant what you're saying. I think it's very relevant to this concept. I was saying that you feel frigidity. You can't just continue on and daven. Very good. You can't just continue on and do a little more of that stuff. You feel frigidity, you have to suddenly change directions and throw yourself into it. If you have a war with Amalek, you're only going to win one way. And the way is all the way. Like Yisra, he ran to the desert to get the Torah. You have to run to the desert. The reason for this is because what is the clip of Amalek? Amalek's clip is very unique. What does Amalek say? Amalek uses the word maybe a lot in his. That's why Yassi had an allergic reaction with the word maybe. Amalek's clip is all about maybe. Amalek asks you three questions. First of all, Amalek says to you, maybe Hashem doesn't mean you. This, by the way, is not my example. Let me give this example in one discourse. First, maybe Hashem doesn't mean you. Maybe it's somebody else. It says no, he wants this. Who maybe doesn't mean you? Second of all, maybe doesn't mean this specific mitzvah. Maybe it doesn't mean this. Maybe Hashem wants something else out of you. The thing you're doing now, whatever it is, doesn't mean this. And thirdly, maybe it doesn't mean matters to Hashem. It's a very dangerous thing.
Because they started the war.
Because Amalek is gematria suffix, and it says Hashem Korach Baderech makes you cold when you're trying to go out of it. Like you're Egypt, trying to go further to serve Hashem. So then Amalek throws in all these doubts. You're trying to do something new. It's just, what are you doing? And also regarding when he attacks you after you saw the defeat of Mitzrayim. What makes a person want to make big steps? The previous Rebbe writes that definition of a balabas. A balabas in the Hasidic lexicon doesn't mean a homeowner, or it means somebody who is complacent. The previous Rebbe says a balabas is someone who change for them means insanity. Change and insanity are synonymous. You can't change. So what makes someone like that want to change? What makes a person like that want to change usually is because you see something incredible happen. You see a miracle of Hashem. So the Rebbe writes another discourse, the Rebbe says that Amalek says to you, first of all, says a miracle even happened. And if he cannot convince you a miracle that didn't happen, he says to you, who says it was such a big miracle? And then if he can't convince you that it wasn't a big miracle, he says to you, well, do you think it's a big deal for God to make miracles? Do you think, that's Amalek says. Amalek speaking very Hasidic language. Amalek says, do you think God can make a miracle? What's the big deal? He's against the excitement. So in that discourse, everybody says Amalek is not logical. That this maybe argument isn't logical. It's not like you're asking a question. You're just throwing a doubt. There's a very big difference between asking a question and a doubt. A doubt sucks all the energy out of you. You have a doubt. Right. Doubt, very, very good. Very, very well said. A question has an answer. Doubt does not have an answer. So
you look for the answer. A question. A doubt.
A doubt you can't answer a doubt. Oh, and that's why the advice for a doubt is not, I'll learn another chapter of Tanya. It's not going to work. You're dealing with something which is in that discourse, everybody uses the expression, it's a chutzpah It's just insolence. It's not like it's a chutzpah doesn't have any logic to it. It's not like there's chutzpah just means I'm going to say the opposite of you because I can. That's chutzpah. In that discourse, it speaks about different kinds of arrogance. A person can be arrogant because they're wealthy, because they're smart, different kinds of arrogance. Then there is arrogance without any reason whatsoever. You know yourself that you're worthless, and I'm still going to fight because I could fight. So that kind of argument, which isn't an argument, just chutzpah, just who cares? Who cares? You can argue with who cares. Who cares? Is not a thing you can argue with. Who cares isn't an argument. Who cares isn't logical. That you could defend it with something else logical. So Amalek is not logical, and therefore the way to deal with it is not with more logic. You learn another concept, and then I'm going to convince the Amalek in me, and now he's going to get interested in Kedusha. It's not the way. The only way is to run to the mountain of God. Or another version running the mountain of God, as ever says over here, is not. What's that? Another way of running the mountain of God is another translation of that is. That doesn't mean you have to move somewhere. It means not to serve Hashem in a logical way, but with shtus kedusha, with serving Hashem beyond logical reason. I'll tell you, Maisa, just heard this Maisa, very good Maisa. We had now in Eretz Yisrael a conference of all the shluchim. There's a rabbi from Chadera, I forgot his name. He said that when he was 10 years old, there was a lot of problems in his home. His mother raised him by herself, and he had to go to shul a lot of times by himself. So he comes to shul, he's 10 years old, and it's night of Yom Kipper, and he's thinking how he's going to find a seat. So the shul is full. And he usually was okay to go to shul by himself, but on Yom Kippur, he's thinking the whole shul is full. And he said, I know what to do. I'm going to get up early, but I'm going to find a seat. So he gets up early, comes to shul, the shul's empty. There's not even a minyan in the shul. People are saying Tillim, saying Karbonis. And he runs throughout the shul looking for a seat. There's a seat. Has someone's name on it. There's also someone's name on it. What's he going to do? So he's running in the shul looking for a seat, looking, and finally he sees at the end of the shul, there's a table which is a little bit broken, and there's some plastic chairs. No one's name is on it. He sits there, he has a seat. He is so excited. And he opens a siddur, and he's into it. And after a couple of hours, the shul fills up. He feels a tap on the shoulder. Boy, that's my seat. I was like, why is this your seat? Why is this your seat? I'm here since early morning. This boy, it's my seat. And the boy's like, just before he even gets a chance to get up, the guy starts screaming at him, get out of here. So the boy is very, very insulted. And he goes out of the shul, goes into the shul, and then returns to Hashem. And he says to Hashem, you don't have a place for an neshama in your shul? You don't have a place for a child who wants to daven in your shul? There's no place for a child. That's what he's thinking. He went back and forth in and out of the shul. That was his Yom Kippur. So Yom Kippur, Tafshin and Aleph, 1991. His mother, at that time, there had been many different difficult issues that they were dealing with. And someone told his mother to write a letter to the Rebbe, show a letter to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said that they should check the mezuzahs. Among other things, as soon as they started looking at the mezuzahs, when the Rebbe says to check themselves, they started looking at the mezuzah, they noticed that on one mezuzah, instead of saying the name of Hashem, Shin, Daled, and Yud, it said Shin Daled. Shin Daled, as you know, is a name for a demon. So they got all the mezuzahs checked. They fixed all the mezuzahs. And all of a sudden, the doors opened. There was a parnasa. There was all the different issues that they were dealing with. And as soon as they fixed the mezuzahs, mamish, there was a shefa. There was an abundance in all areas. So her siblings, his mother's siblings, got together. So we got to go to the Rebbe and thank the Rebbe for these great miracles. You got to just ask the Rebbe for a blood bracha and check the mezuzahs. Look what happened. Just got to go there. So she went to the Rebbe and come to Dallas. She went there by the conference of Shluchim, Tafshin Aleph. She comes there, and you can see there's a video. I saw the video. She comes by the Rebbe. Unless you're familiar with watching the dollars, watching the Rebbe's dollars, you're not going to get the incredible miracle over here. But she comes by the Rebbe. She asks for a bracha, and just for her children, it gives her bracha for her family. It gives her bracha. Then the Rebbe gives another $1. This is for your son. So she comes back to Israel, and she says, the Rebbe thinks about. I was thinking, you shouldn't tell the Rebbe, I have a son, and this is for your son. So you have a place in the heart of the Rebbe. You have a place in the heart of the Rebbe. And the boy's thinking, wow, in this shul next to my house, I don't have a place. There's no place in the shul next to my house. A boy can't find a seat. But in our great Rebbe, it was in his heart, I have a place. There's a place for me in Rebbe's heart. So, and this boy, he's now a shliach in Chadera, and he says, and it's not just about him. He says this is all of us. We have a place in the Rebbe's heart, and not just all of us, but that we're supposed to find a place for other Yidden. No Jew should be stuck without a chair, without a place with Hashem. Every Hashem should be there. Anyway, so the clip of Amalek, what does the clip of Amalek try to do? Amalek says to you, you don't belong. You don't belong. It says Hashem doesn't mean you. Hashem doesn't mean now. Hashem doesn't. It's not. You're not connected. And he puts that this frigidity in you and says it's not for you. So the answer for this is to run to the mountain of Hashem. What's it mean to run to the mountain of Hashem? Kabbalah, sales, you have to go beyond logic and reason. You can't deal with the logic and reason. Like in this story, how did they ever cure this boy? It wasn't by just showing him something which is otherworldly. A miracle. Well, truth is a miracle doesn't work, as we said. But here, in this story, they ever showed him this closeness, this warmth. And this doesn't transfer to the analog we're discussing here. But the point is that in ourselves, what we need to do when we experience Klippa of Amalek, the antidote, the Klippa of Amalek is shtus kedusha. Go beyond logic and reason. He says maybe you do the exact opposite. You say just because. Oh, just because. Here you understand. The opposite of maybe just because. You agree or no? I'm just because. This is what we're doing.
I remember first gave a good practical advice that doesn't work for this.
Go to the mountain of God.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Throw yourself into the
How does that practically?
It means to throw yourself.
Okay, you have a problem. Learn chapter Tanya. Great.
Throw yourself completely into it. Don't do what's the word they use in medicine? To just deal with the symptom. Don't deal with it, just a symptom. To throw yourself completely into it. He moved. He ran to the mountain of God. So I was saying you're not going to deal with this klippa by just like adding one little thing to your life. Right. You have to throw yourself into it. And then it says that this is identical. What it tells us when it's say to Hashem beyond logic and reason. You have to throw yourself into it.
So when they say you should know how to answer
Apikaris.
Thank you. Is this the approach? Is this the similar approach? Because he's not going to be persuaded. He's got all the answers. It's a thing, come on.
I know about Apikaris, but you remind me of something similar. You know the famous story of Rebbe Rashab, where someone tells the Rebbe Rashab, what's a chas? He asked her, what's a chas, right? A famous story. So Rebbe Rashab said a chas is a lamplighter. And he goes and lights up other people. So the chassid then asked Rebbe Rashab, what do you do if the lamps are in the desert? And he says, to light the lamps in the desert will be embarrassed. It's a desert, stop being a desert. And he asked Rebbe Rashab, what do you do if the lamps are in the ocean? So Rebbe Rashab says, take your clothing off and jump in the ocean, and then light the lamps in the ocean. Then the chassid asked Rebbe Rashab, is this a chassid? And then Rebbe Rashab thought for a moment, and he said, yeah, that's a chassid. So there's a whole long explanation of the Rebbe. I can't go through the whole thing right now, but the Rebbe dissects the conversation. And the Rebbe says, a chassid, yes, he has to be a lamplighter, light up someone else's neshama, light up on the person's heart. That's what we need to do. It's true. But the chassid asks, what about a person is a desert like? He has nothing. You don't see any sensitivity, anything spiritual in it. So the Rebbe Rashab says, don't worry. You light up the neshama, and the person will be embarrassed already what's going on in his life. Recently I saw someone ask the Rebbe, how can you tell people go put on film with people? It's like putting on a tie without any clothing. You put on film with someone in the middle of the street before they wash negavas, before they know anything. It's like putting on a tie. I've said exactly. You put on a tie, the person's embarrassed, not wearing any clothing. Put the tie on, the guy will realize so much more. So similarly, when you light up the neshama, the desert starts being a desert. The second question is, what about an ocean? Rebbe says that just like the Gemara says, there's poverty and wealth. Physically, there's also poverty and wealth and logic and knowledge. The desert represents someone who is poor in knowledge. The ocean represents someone who's rich in knowledge. He's full of Torah. So you might say, oh, guy's full of Torah, but his neshama is not alive. You hear Dr. Vesper, it's not necessarily that he's an Epicurus, which actually we learned earlier this week. I don't know if you weren't here that day, but we learned earlier this week that someone told the previous Rebbe that he's an Apikoros. The previous Rebbe said you don't become an Apikoros by eating sunflower seeds on Yom Kippur. In order to be Apikoros, it's to qualify. Just saying I don't believe is not unless you have something to say you don't believe in. You have to know what you're talking about. So someone's full of Torah though. He is an Apikoros. He's a qualified Apikoros, or not necessarily he's Apikoros, but he's very religious, but he's very frigid. So the Rebbe Rashab said, if his neshama hasn't been lit, what you're supposed to do is take off your clothing. Take off your clothing means that you don't talk. You don't tell him another idea of Torah, another chapter of Tanya. It's not going to work. Another idea. Oh, should I tell you another word? The guy's an ocean. He's a frigid ocean of Torah. He knows the whole Torah. Tell him another idea of Torah. To reach him, the Rebbe Rashab says you take off your clothing, which means you have to decide to let go of all the layers of your external reality and talk from the very core of your neshama. You have to decide, I want to be sincere and I want to reach this person and therefore I'm going to talk from my inner core. You have to take off your clothing. So indeed, in order to reach other persons, just like we're saying over here, to deal with your own Amalek, you have to throw yourself into it and you have to go beyond logic and reason. Similarly, and to deal with Apikoros, the way to really answer someone who was knowledgeable in Torah and the neshama is not alive is through take off your clothing and talking from your neshama. Even though and that's why the chassid asked the Rebbe Rashab, is that a chassid? What was his question? He's sitting there, Rebbe Rashab's answering him. He's doubting the Rebbe Rashab. And when the Rebbe Rashab also, you have to think for a second. Why have to think for a second? The Rebbe Rashab doesn't know what he's saying. He has to think for a second. You know how hard that is? It's so hard to talk to a wall. It's very hard to talk to someone who just doesn't care. Someone so frigid. It's very hard to pour your neshama out to a brick wall. It's very difficult. Therefore, they ask the Rashab, are you serious? Like, you're asking so much. And even the Rashab had to think for a moment, meaning like acknowledged. He's asking for a lot. Anyway, so the bottom line is, dealing with the clip of Amalek is specifically through serving Hashem beyond logic and reason. So to bring the Yisrei in your soul to do this. What's the Yisra in your soul mean? Everyone knows that they have this spirit of foolishness below logic and reason. As the Gemara says, you will never do a sin unless a spirit of madness enters you. So you have to take the Yisra in your soul, you have to take the part of you which is able to transform that which is below logic and reason and bring it to that which is above logic and reason. You just like Yisra runs into the desert after knowing all of connected to all the unholy things. So to ourselves, we know how connected we are to the unholy. So we have to take that energy that we use to go to the unholy, to run to the higher mountain of Hashem, to throw ourselves with the same passion beyond logic and reason into Kedusha. So in short, the advice that I was giving to deal with Amalek, to deal with the frigidity, is not to learn another chapter of Chassidus, another Maimer, another chapter of Tanya. Rather, is to throw yourself into Kedusha, which means to serve Hashem beyond logic and reason. Throw yourself into it.